And this always happens that I get, let's see, from the beginning. I'm trying to get to where it says, there it goes, slideshow from the beginning. So we're talking here about planning your air. Very, very basic. And lots of times in regional weekends, you have people that talk to you about how to breathe. And that's real basic, and that's always, well, that's a good thing to use at the beginning of a warm-up, talking general deep breaths. But here we're talking about how do you get enough air during a song to perform and keep your performance at a really great level so that you're not going to suddenly run out of support for what you're doing. I just wondered if people have things in the beginning that they have questions or areas of interest that they want to make sure get covered, because I can write things down on a piece of paper here if you want to speak up, and we can write things down and then we can come back to them at the end and see if we've covered things. So you can unmute and speak up if you'd like. And I'm not hearing anybody.
Nobody's writing anything, so.
Nobody's writing anything, so okay.
I guess how to improve your.
Say again?
You're in and out. Andrew, you can't be heard very easily.
Oh, sorry, I'm coming into a dead zone. Just I guess how to improve your breath support throughout time. Like what are a bunch, like I guess a variety of techniques to practice to increase that.
Okay. How to improve your breath support over time. As you continue to learn to sing barbershop and to sing different pieces of music, how do you continue to improve?
I have a question.
Sure.
How much would nerves have to do with your breath plan once you're on stage?
Okay. I'm not answering things right now. I'm just taking them down. But that is an important one. I want to underline it for myself, so I might think to say it during the course of the presentation. Anyone else? Okay, well, if other things come up for you, you can certainly write them in the chat. And when we come back to this slide again at the end of the presentation, maybe we can go over those. We can go over questions then. So first, we want to. I kind of shaped this as who, what, when, where, and why. The who is really everybody. Air planning is important. Some people feel like they're cheating if they're taking extra breaths in a song, more so than what the director has created in terms of a breathing plan, an interpretation plan. But when songs are interpreted, they're interpreted for impact and for storytelling and for working with the musical line and the harmonies, and they're not created, the interpretation is not created with individual people in mind. It's created with a chorus in mind. We're talking chorus now, we're not talking quartet. With a chorus in mind where there's more than one person on a part. So they're not expecting everybody to hold the same length of phrase out. But they want the phrase to sound like everybody is holding the same length of phrase all the way to the end. Uptunes can and nerves and performance nerves can really get into you and get your heart beating fast, and they can change the amount of air you feel like you have. So it's really important to be able to plan your air for uptunes. At this point in time, when most of us aren't really singing a lot, breath support, being out of condition is really important too. So it's another good time to start thinking about it. It's working over Zoom is a good time to try and work on some of your own personal skill levels. You can do it in the privacy of your own home with your mute on and nobody knows you're working on it. So it's great. a great time to start. So I have a CD in my computer, and I'm going to stop the share and play the CD. This is a top 10 chorus from 1999, singing from the first hello to the last goodbye. And I want you to imagine that you're singing with them. And I'm just going to play the sound. I'm not going to play the visual, so you really listen to it. And think about these aspects of the song. The extent of soft, the extent of loud, how they change during the course of a phrase, notes that are held for a long time, long, full phrase endings, etc. I want you to try and listen for that as if you were the singer, and think, how would you get through that if you had only the breath plan that's given? How would it feel to sing that song? Can you imagine yourself trying to do that with only the planned breaths? Only the planned breaths. It's unbelievable, that kind of dynamic change, that kind of control that they had. And then they would sing, they would get really, really soft, and all of a sudden they would have the energy yet to get larger again in their sound. And I just picked them. I was just running through this CD that I have, which is top 10 performers from the year 1999. And you could have picked any of the ballads and you could have given the same example. It's just, as I said, it's not designed to be for an individual singer. It's designed for us to share the story there and share the support that's necessary to make that kind of sound happen. It's a important skill to be able to pick up and work within your section and within the other people that are singing with you to try and plan when you need to breathe in order to make the song continue through. Sorry, I was trying to turn my my slide. So we're going to start with a few exercises, and you can do this just sitting up straight, or you can stand up if you want to. The first exercise, I want you to exhale all of your air as much as you feel comfortable with. And then just as you do that, you'll feel that your abdomen is pulling in and pushing up on your lungs. And then once you've exhaled all your air, you just relax the abdominal muscles, open the throat, and let the air come back in. I'm not asking you to inhale, just relax. 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 Each time you go to exhale again, try not to purposefully inhale. Try to just work on that air that you let come into your body and see how much of it you had. What this exercise does is helps us, first of all, to see that getting the air in is a natural function of the body. It's not something we have to physically pull the air in. The body will take the air in.
Yes.
Relax the abdominal muscles. And because what you have is 2 lungs inside of your rib cage, and they're supported underneath by the diaphragm muscle, which is kind of curved. And the diaphragm muscle, when you're taking in air, it moves down and it allows the lungs to expand. And when you're using the air, it comes up slowly and it pushes the air out of the lungs. So if you just drop it back down, a vacuum is created and the air just goes in. And if you can learn to trust that you're getting air and you don't have to suck in air like that, you're getting air without adding tension to your instrument. So we're going to try to use that abdominal relaxation, but we're going to just add a little tone to the exercise. So we'll sing mi, mi, ma, mo, mo, and then we'll have the relaxation and we'll go up a pitch and we'll sing again. So
Everybody remember to mute, please.
mi, mi, ma, mo, mo, mi, mi, ma, mo, mo. Relax. Mi, mi, ma, mo, mo. Relax. Mi, mi, ma, mo, mo. Relax. Mi, mi, ma, mo, mo. So I hope you can feel that you can use that just relaxed abdominal muscle and letting the air come in before you sing again, and you have sufficient air in order to get through the phrase. Now it's a short phrase, so, but you can do that with longer phrases too. Your body takes in what it needs. You're not going to faint or hyperventilate in this case because you're taking in only what you need. You're not taking in too much. And you're not creating tension in the body by letting the air come in this way. And it's quick and it's silent. So there's a lot of good aspects to it and qualities to that kind of air admission, I'll say. I don't want to call it a breath, although we do call it a breath. But it's a lot. By taking your breath that way, you're really adding to your ability to continue to sing with a lot of good quality sound. And you can take those breaths in the course of a phrase by dropping out a word or a syllable. So the next exercise, we need to think ahead a little bit and plan where the breath is going to go. That's the next step. Now we've learned how to take the breath and how to take the breath with music. So now we're going to try to plan where the breath happens. The musical pattern is just to sing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3. That's going to be the musical pattern. But on the first phrase, you'll sing all the way through. On the next phrase, we're going to get a breath instead of singing the 1. And on the next phrase, you'll get a breath instead of singing the 2. And on the next phrase, you'll get a breath instead of singing the 3. So there's no breaths between the phrases. You just continually sing. So start with, and those breaths should be these relaxed abdominal muscles where you just let air come in. So start with me here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. I think my numbering got a little off. But I'm hoping you're able to practice that with me. You have to think ahead. You have to know where you're going to put the breath in and just make it happen in the context of the music. You're not changing the tempo, and you're still actually shaping the word as if you were saying the word. So you're staying right in the visual performance of the music. And those are aspects of taking a personal breath. So you think ahead, you know certain personal breaths you plan where you want to take them. If somebody asked the question about nerves in a performance, if you know that you're very nervous in the beginning of the first song, you might want to put some personal breaths there for yourself until you get a chance to feel the stage and get relaxed. And so you would purposefully put them, plan them there and practice them there as you sing the song in the chorus. Sometimes,
Marian, there is one question, and I don't know if you want to handle it now. How can we use all the air? Hard to breathe when you still have air.
well, yes, it is hard to breathe when you still have air. And I'm going to look at this next personal advanced topic here of a personal exhale. That question came at just the right time. Sometimes you end up with too much air in your body. This business of relaxing your abdominal muscles and just letting air come in is one where you shouldn't get too much because you're not actually inhaling. You're only letting your body take in what it needs. So you shouldn't get too much air from that. But if you breathe a couple of times in a row on short phrases, you'll find that you end up with more air than you need. So this next exercise is now try it first, taking a breath each time. Breathe, breathe, and you can feel that the air is building up inside of you because they're very short phrases and you're not really using the air. So what you can do instead of breathing in every time is you can actually exhale on one of those. So on the first one, we're gonna take a breath before the exercise, sing the first line, exhale of some air, sing the next line, then relax your muscles and admit air and sing the third line. So I'll demonstrate. So try it with me. The first line, you breathe before, you sing, then you want you to exhale air, sing the second line, and then you can relax your muscles, let air come in for the third line. Let's start here. Let's start here. I don't know if people are being successful with that because I can't see what people's faces, but that's an exercise to do. If you feel you're really building up a lot of held air, that air is getting old and stale inside of you, and it's not going to serve you well to hold on to it. You actually can find a place in the song to drop out a word or a phrase, or not a phrase, drop out a word or a syllable, and just exhale. Push some of that air out and let it go. You wouldn't want to do it to make noise. I made noise in the exercise just to show you what I was doing. But you can actually let air out if you feel like you're building up too much. And it's a great way to give the body a chance to refresh, because the next breath you take is going into a void, and there's plenty of room for you to take air. So that is one way that you can use up all the air you have. And some people can use their breath for a very long time, and chorus phrases aren't really long enough for them for the most part. And those people need to learn that advanced topic of the personal exhale. So it's a worthwhile exercise to try. So the next question after how is when? When do you put them in? When in a song do you think that personal breaths become useful? Well, this is in the handout, if you've printed out the handout. So if you are singing, for example, lead or bass, and you have a pickup coming in the music, and you know that you're not going to get a planned chorus breath before that pickup, then you have to take a personal breath before the pickup in the previous phrase. You have to plan for one there. If you're getting to be very dynamically soft in a song, you need to have enough air to support that. You might need to take breaths during the dynamic soft in order to make sure that you are supporting it well enough for it to continue to have quality sound. If there's a key change coming up in the song, that's an energy boost in the song, and it isn't going to be an energy boost unless you have the breath to support it. So you need to make sure that you're planning a breath before the key change. The key word here is before. On those, the intro obviously is the beginning, but in the rest of the song, before you need the air is when you need to take the air. So you need to know your own voice and your own body. And if you're in an instance where you're going to be especially nervous, you might need to add some additional breaths. So obviously in the intro, many times there's a posted note. Many times an intro is loud and uses a lot of energy, and you're starting off, perhaps if it's competition and you're on stage and it's the first sound you're making on stage, and the bright lights are in your face and the people are in the audience and your nerves are up, you're going to need to make sure that you have planned some extra breaths in that intro in order to stay in with the song and keep the energy of the intro going. And if you have a posted note, same thing. You can drop out of a posted note and come back in on the same note and still have the same quality. And that's a great thing to do if you're just holding a note at the end of a song. So what I like to do when I'm taking a breath during a posted note is to actually decrease my sound a little bit and drop out, and then come back in a little soft and pick back up a little bit with sound to match everybody around me, so that it isn't just a off-on sense, because that could potentially be heard. Then that has to be practiced so that it doesn't happen, so that you can learn the technique and the skill of that. So if I'm holding a note, stay, and you have to stay in pitch, and you have to stay in the vowel, and you have to be concerned to stay within the context of the music that's going on around you. But you can drop out, let your abdomen relax so that some air comes in, and come right back in and holds that posted note. If there's a stomp coming up, it's similar to a key change. It's an energy boost to the song, and you want to make sure that you're prepared for that by breathing before you need the air. When we're talking about tension chords, like Karen talked about in her presentation, you want to be able to hold that and have intensity in it. So you want to make sure that you've prepared yourself before that happens. And then as you're singing through the song, there might be some phrases that are particularly challenging to you. It could be range, it could be vowels, it could be crossing your passaggio, so to speak. And there could be just aspects of the song that you find particularly difficult. You might need personal breaths planned in order to get into those phrases and to get through those phrases and stay in the performance mode of the song. So when do you need to personal breaths? Everywhere in the song. And there are people who feel that they're cheating if they have to take a breath more than what the director had suggested, but it is not the case. In barbershop, in a cappella singing without any instruments behind us, we are the sound, and we have to make sure that that sound stays consistent. And so you have to know your voice and find wherever you need to put the breaths in. For people who are doing this for first, learning to do this particular skill, I often suggest go through the song and plan maybe 4 places, maybe 3 places in the song where you're going to put that personal breath every time that you sing. And if sometime in the future we're working again with coaches and you're starting the song somewhere in the middle, in the middle of the song instead of starting at the beginning, and you're in your phrase that has a personal breath, take the personal breath, practice it, being always in that same place so that you're used to it being there. And if you're singing it on Zoom, you're singing it at home and nobody's listening to you, put your personal breaths in. You can mark them down on a lyric sheet. You can just circle the words that you want to take the air in instead of singing those words. And that's a way and you can work with that sheet as a visual to help you remember your plan and where you want the personal breaths to be. So, okay, so there's all these places in the song where you could use personal breaths. So how now do you fit them into the music so that you're not finding it too difficult to do this, to take the breath? So there are places within a song, for example, if you're on the top of an octave and the people below you are creating the sound with the overtone, you can easily take a breath there without anybody losing the sound, without the audience losing the sound. I don't say easily, it's a question of practicing it and learning it, but that's a good place to plan one if you need a personal breath, because you know that the sound is supported by the lower part of the octave. If you have notes that come the same note 4 or 5 notes in a row, you can easily drop one out and take a breath and come back in and not lose your place in the song and not lose your pitch in the song. I'm going to show you these on the music. If you have a note that's held for a long time, like a posted note, or you're holding a note and other parts are moving around you, that's a place where you can, as I said before, you can drop out and you can come back in. And if there are notes that are very high or notes that are very low for you personally, those are probably good places to put in your personal breaths, because then it doesn't, if it's a difficult extreme for you and it's hard for you to make a quality sound there, you're contributing more actually to get the air and sing what's happening after it well, than to try and produce a sound that isn't going to be the best. So vocal extremities are a good place. If you've got short lyrics in the song, small words that aren't necessarily carrying the story, but they're just in between words, those are good ones to leave out and to take a breath. If you have a line with difficult intervals or a very jumpy part, that you can take out a note sometimes, which and make the line actually sing smoother for you, but take out the note by taking a breath and it actually feels smoother for you. So we're going to look at that one here. And this is it's the music that brings us together. And if you look at measures 11 and 12, there's a lot of accidentals. The tenor has a pretty jumpy part line. The bass has a somewhat jumpy part line. And even the lead has that accidental, that F sharp in there that, it could be hard to tune that. And now I'm not saying that everybody drops out on that same note. but some people who are struggling with any of these pitches, trying to get them to sound accurate, you can take a breath instead. So those sweet melodies, those grand harmonies. You see, I stay in the context of the line. I shape the word with my mouth, but I get the air instead of singing that note. That was that note that I left out for the lead. The baritones. Oh, those grand harmonies. That could, I'm not in the correct pitch, but that could get to be a very high note for some baritones. And it's coming from where you're singing lower down, and it might be less comfortable for some people, and those people might be well off to take the breath there, or not. In that case, that's the end of the phrase, to stop singing there and to relax, maybe exhale and get prepared for the breath that you're going to take for the next line. So you can see that if you're jumping around and you leave out a low note, then your line would maybe go straight up instead of jumping down and then up. The bass line there, grand harmonies, you see how har jumps up. If you left that note out and took a breath instead, you would just have a line that moves up sequentially. So that would be perhaps easier to sing and something you could look for in the music and practice. Repeated notes, I mentioned that in measure 21, you can see the tenor, the baritone, and the bass all have the same note 3 times. And in fact, the tenor has the same note previous in the measure before. The baritone has the same note in the measure after. So if you were singing trouble and strife and you needed a breath, you could leave one of those out. So trouble, strife, and you can stay in the phrase because you don't have to worry about what the next note is going to be. You're taking out, you're omitting a note and letting in air, but you're able to stay in place easily enough because you don't have to worry about the pitch of the subsequent note. It's right there. It's the same note you were already singing. So that's a good place to plan a breath. There's held notes in measures 15. Everybody's got a held note. The lead holds over, the baritone, well, changes notes. No, most of the harmony parts all change note in measure 16, but the lead holds right straight through. So that's a place like a post where you could drop out if you wanted to and then come back in. Measure 23, the lead has the held note, the baritone has the held note, the other parts are moving around. There's another place where you could, if you needed to, drop out for a second, let your abdomen relax and bring in air so that you can sing. If you've sung with this learning recording, you know that they really hold the ends of these phrases. They look easy when we're looking at the music, like, it's a short phrase, but they're milking it, and we're all singing it with the learning recording. So we all have to milk the ends of these phrases too. And you could use an extra breath in some of these places. Top of an octave. If you can read the music, you can find your octaves. If you don't personally read the music strongly enough to do that, you can ask somebody in your chorus to help you figure that out, where there are octaves. In measure 15, the tenor is on the top of an octave. In measure 17, the baritone is on the top of an octave. And in measure 19, the lead is on the top of an octave. You could take a breath there and leave out the word or the syllable that's there so that the sound below you supports the music, and it doesn't have to, it gives you an opportunity to refresh for the rest of the line. Measure 23, vocal extremities, there's not a lot, well, it feels like extreme when you're singing in the song. The baritones are holding that B up there and the B flat, and it feels high when we're singing it. The tenors are up into an F and an E flat. So it's possible that you might need extra air in order to perform that well. So you'd look through the music for these kinds of musical clues. Then you can look at the words. I talked about short words. So for example, in measure 17, storms roll around. You could leave out the of round. Storms roll round, storms roll round. And you can take the breath on the short half of the word around. So that's another place where you can plan. So that's pretty much what I had to present, and what we were talking about, what the questions that were asked before. One question, the most recent question was how to use all the air. We talked about the personal exhale, which is something you can practice if you're one of those people that actually ends up with more air than you need. And how do nerves have to do with planning on stage? Somebody once said to me that there's more planning, personal breath planning. One skill is this idea of planning where they're going to be and practicing where they're going to be and doing them in the same place all the time. And the other skill is, once you've learned how to take a personal breath, is to monitor yourself as you're performing. And if you need the air, you just find a place, you just take it where you need it, or before you need it, hopefully, but to take it on the fly, so to speak. And that can be a way of dealing with nerves and anything that comes up in a performance that you're not prepared for. You need to probably talk with other people in your section. Maybe if there's someone in your section that stands near you, you want to make sure you're not taking the same personal breaths. Some places are particularly comfortable to fit a breath in, and a lot of people might want to go for the same word or the same syllable. So you want to make sure not everybody's taking the same thing. If you're a more advanced singer, you might want to leave some of the easier personal breath spots for other people and find something that's a little more challenging for yourself. Makes it just different, you know. And somebody asked how to improve breath usage over time. The exercises we did in the beginning are helpful if just because you get used to how the mechanism works, the diaphragm moving and the lungs expanding and contracting. And when you get to trust that the air that comes into your body on that admission of air is sufficient for what you're going to need to sing, then you don't have to, as I said before, add tension and start pressuring your sound. It's not easy to learn to trust that if we have been singing for a long time and you're used to just taking a forceful inhale whenever you need one. You've got to practice those type of exercises that we did in the beginning to get used to doing that. And then if there's a song you've sung for a long time, you're going to go back to old habits. So you've got to insert these new breathing habits into any music that you've been doing for any period of time, and be kind to yourself. It's not simple to change habits, and but it's worth it. It's worthwhile to work on just this little, it's a funny little skill because you're actually leaving something out of the song, but it's helping the overall performance and the overall sound of the chorus. Marian, I don't know, was there anything else that came up in the chat in the course of the presentation?
I just answered one privately because our young lady from Richtown's wondered, she did not know what a stomp was, and you talked about a stomp and she didn't know that. So I think I gave her a decent explanation privately in chat. So no, I think everybody was, I mean, your explanation is very, very good and very specific. And to me, you didn't leave anything out, but who knows?
That's good.
Somebody else may have a question, so.
I have a question.
Sure.
This doesn't really have to do with air, but what do with excess saliva, and how do I swallow? Where do you swallow?
I get that too. Yeah. Well, if you're in a chorus, you may be able to find a place. You could plan a place if you know this is going to happen. Somebody once told me that using your jaw a lot makes your brain think that you're eating, and it produces the saliva. If you can try to sing with a more calm jaw that doesn't up and down all the time, so your mouth would not be open as much, your vowels would be smaller, and I'm not talking about tension here, but I'm just talking about not using the jaw to pronounce your words, then you might get a little bit less saliva to begin with. But if you're in the middle of a chorus and you have that, you're just going to have to stop, probably close your mouth and swallow in order to continue singing. In a quartet, it's murder. And I don't know how to tell you, other than that, trying to relax the jaw and not use it so hard. I don't know what else to suggest for that. I do have that problem myself.
I usually I've had it just drip out the corner of my mouth singing in a quartet one time, just rolled down the corner of my chin.
And you just have to pretend it's not there.
Can't do anything about it.
Yeah. So just as a review, you want to make sure that if you can learn that relaxed breath, it's silent, it does not interrupt what's going on around you, and it's the right, when I say breathe low, I mean down into where the abdomen is, not to breathe up into the chest and up into the shoulders, but to let the body relax so that the air goes in and gives you enough to work with. Think of taking your breath before a phrase or taking your personal breath, as I say, before you need it, because that's the way to support your sound, is to have the air. Taking a breath is not a reward for finishing the phrase. Taking a breath is preparing for the phrase going forward. Know your voice and support your voice where you need it in order by putting in a breath plan. Stay in tempo, shape the lyric so that you're continuing to perform and you're not dropping out of the visual that's going on around you, and you're not creating sync problems. And the occasional exhale to release stale air is an important technique to learn, and some people can find that very useful. So I just put my contact information here if anybody wanted to reach out to me personally for what's going on, for questions, or to go through the exercises again or something like that. I'm very happy to work with anybody who's interested. And that's all I have. So
That was really good, Marian. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
you're welcome.